Senator Roberts.
Chair, and I stand as a servant to the people of Queensland and Australia. This bill is about unravelling building industry cartels, and their union cronies are caught in the crossfire. But the bill is about protecting and restoring this industry from the grip of the cartels. Above all, this bill supports freedom. Freedom of choice for union workers, whether they want to be in a union or not. Freedom of choice for subbies. Freedom of choice for small business. Freedom of choice for taxpayers, so that we don't have to keep paying exorbitant rates for buildings that are controlled by a building industry cartel that includes the CFMEU. This bill supports small business. This bill supports taxpayers. This bill supports honest union members from their union bosses. This bill supports the building industry. And I've had the pleasure of talking with Ken Phillips, who has explained to me how small businesses have been crippled by big businesses that want to suppress small business competition. They are pushing the risk down to the small businesses, and they are doing the union's bidding. Unpaid bills certainly are rife in the industry. We know about that, and that is due largely to the power and the control of a few large companies. When I listen in Queensland to big, burly, well-muscled men running their businesses, and they're in tears because of their fear for their families and their employees, then I know we've got a problem. And yet, what did we hear from the Greens and the Labor Party last night? We heard about Fidel Castro, who destroyed his nation. We heard endlessly about work choices, ice dealers, diaries, fatalities, and fatalities are sad, but the fact is that safety improved under the previous ABCC provisions. We heard all about the chicken littles, all the scratching and running around in this house last night, all the little pecking, all the chicken littles. I don't know which bill Senator Cameron was reading, but I don't know which bill Senator Cameron was reading.
Order, Senator Roberts, resume your seat. Senator McKim on a point of order.
Thank you. The point of order, Chair, is the Senate is a workplace for a number of people, and there are people in Hansard who listen very carefully to the contributions. I think.
Thank you, Senator McKim. You've made your point. Thank you. Please resume your seat. Senator Roberts.
Thank you. I read the ABCC bill from cover to cover, including the building code, and it does nothing that Senator Cameron alleges. The CFMEU supposedly bargaining for its members, yet it funds GetUp to the tune of $1.2 million in 2010. This is a very sad thing that I'm going to discuss next, and that is black lung. Black lung is a crippling disease in the coal industry, and we thought it was ended, thanks to legislation and thanks to modern equipment and modern high-velocity ventilation. But in Queensland recently, we've seen black lung recur, and the CFMEU controls 4 of the levels of responsibility for preventing black lung, including 2 levels that are paid for by the industry and that are responsible under the CFMEU. That is an indictment on the CFMEU's attitude towards safety. We see the CFMEU allied with activists and with GetUp, who are also connected with American billionaires funding the destruction, and they admit this, funding the destruction of this country's coal industry, and they're closely allied with President Obama and senior people of Hillary Clinton's campaign. This is indeed payback, Mr. Chair. As Senator Cameron said, it is payback for the people in Australia, for the union members, honest union members, against the large building companies and the CFMEU cronies. That's what it is payback for. Senator Cameron, in my view, Chair, is of the old days, when might was right, when safety was seen as a cost, and then it was a constant battle, because the old view was that safety cost money, and that is no longer appropriate. Senator Cameron still sees safety as an alternative to productivity. It's not, and I'll get onto the solution in a minute. In the old days, quality was seen as a cost. It is not a cost, but that's what it was seen as. So companies, managers, people right throughout the country, throughout the world, thought that higher quality meant higher cost. That has also been tipped away. The environment was seen as a cost, and the Greens still see it as a cost, to the detriment of our civilisation. Times have changed, Mr. Chair. Safety now is seen to improve productivity. That's why safety makes commercial sense. When people focus on safety properly, they improve the work processes, the work environment, and that leads to less waste, less injuries, less near misses, and less waste of materials. Safety improves productivity. This bill is about putting responsibility back on the employers in this industry, and that will improve safety, as it did under the old ABCC. Quality improves productivity. Maybe people in this chamber aren't aware of what the Japanese did. The Japanese focused on quality and dramatically improved productivity, and that has given us the modern miracle of modern manufacturing, which reduces costs. And the same miracle will start to apply much more rapidly in the construction sector once management is allowed to behave properly, and once the senior management of major companies are required to manage properly. In the environment, we now see that the environment improves productivity because the environment is despoiled by pollutants. Pollutants are waste, and when we reduce waste, we improve the environment, we improve costs. And the Greens, though, seem to think that civilisation and the environment are mutually exclusive, whereas they are mutually beneficial. I've been made aware, Mr. Chair, of some hours of work, or maybe the hours of recreation, and the Carrara worksite and Queensland agreements. A typical day during a pattern negotiation was this on a worksite in Carrara, which the taxpayers are paying for. 6:30 start, 6:30 to 7 o'clock workers arrive, attend pre-work meetings with the relevant foreman. Sounds good. 7:30 to 9:30, a union communication meeting. But wait for it, that's the first communication meeting that they're entitled to. 9:30 to 10, scheduled smoko break. Must have been a pretty hectic meeting. And then 10 o'clock till 11 o'clock, limited work. 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock, wait for it, our second union communication meeting. The union mustn't be very good at communication, I guess. 1 o'clock to 1:30, of course, after a tiring morning, it's necessary for a lunch break. And then 1:30 to 2:30, another hour of limited work. And then 2:30 to 3 o'clock, knock-off, staggered finishing time between 2:30 and 3 p.m. 2 hours of work, 2 hours of limited work in an 8-hour day. Amazing. Who's paying for this? We are, the taxpayers. The taxpayers are paying for this. Senator Cameron, Mr. Chair, doesn't seem to understand economics. He feigned ignorance that the building construction industry doesn't affect house prices. When the price of apartments rise, the price of houses rise. It's that simple, supply and demand. Everyone knows that. Well, I would have thought everyone knows that. Some building workers, contrary to what Senator Cameron said, actually go out to work every day, but they can't get work. They can't get work because they're black banned. And sometimes they're threatened and they're under intimidation. And not only them, their families, their workmates. Dyson Hayden and many judges have confirmed that. And how many? We have around 100 CFMEU officials before the courts. And Senator Cameron raises accountability. And that is the core of this bill. But how can we have accountability when workers, when foremen, when shareholders, when owners of buildings have to go through the court system to get it? It is not right. This bill, and the building code in particular, pushes accountability back to where it belongs, to the head of the senior companies. This bill is about freedom, accountability, safety and workers' rights, and improving every one of them. Senator Rhiannon talks about protecting the CFMEU. Why? Because it's a source of Greens funds, a major source of Greens funds. Another point I want to address is the use of labels by members of the ALP in this Senate and members of the Greens in this Senate. When I hear someone being labelled as arrogant, as a liar, etc., then it means to me they haven't got, the person using the label has not got the evidence. That again is an old, outdated tactic and displays behaviours that are no longer productive. In fact, the old unions, which Senator Cameron seems to exemplify, stifled workers and disconnected workers and stifled apprentices. When people are not free to use their talents through demarcation, it is a very crippling effect on work pride and work satisfaction. 457 visas. I'm under the understanding that when Bill Shorten was Minister for Employment, the number of 457 visas increased dramatically. I'm also under the understanding that GetUp Foundation Board members included Bill Shorten, an ally of the CFMEU. I'm also under the understanding that under the previous Labor government, Kentucky Fried Chicken and McDonald's used 457. Now, I may be wrong in that, but that's what I've heard. Restricting subbies to a CFM... Sorry?
Just direct your comments through the chair. Thanks, Senator Roberts.
Restricting subbies to a CFMEU panel and not being allowed to employ anyone else apart from those on the CFMEU panel discriminates heavily against the worker. The union movement, I was in a discussion with Senator Pauline Hanson and one of our office staff some months ago, and I had the privilege of being with senior members of the ACTU and the CFMEU, and I asked them for their opinions of what are the big issues facing this country. And one of them said the need to increase wages. None of them said tax. And tax is crippling our industry in this country, and tax is crippling payrolls because we are taxing payrolls, we are taxing gross incomes, and that means we are taxing for a person to get a decent increase. The gross income makes their increase prohibitive when it comes to employment in many industries. So we are taxing people out of work. We are taxing people out of work because the tax system is antiquated and designed for another era. The ACTU does not raise tax. The opposition leader in the lower house does not raise tax. He said he wouldn't raise tax. The Prime Minister said they won't raise tax, and yet jobs are supposed to be a big issue. We must address tax. We must address tax so the cost of living pressures are removed from everyday builders and their employees. It seems to me, Mr Chair, that everyday people are cannon fodder for the ALP union's cartel, the machine that tries to control, in cahoots with big builders, this building industry and is holding our country back. We need to protect small businesses, subbies, we need to protect workers, honest workers, and we need to protect the taxpayers from union cartels in collusion with big business. And then I come to the Greens. Again, the Greens. Only the Greens could tell us that depreciation is a subsidy on hydrocarbon fuels. Only the Greens could lack understanding of accounting so that they classify depreciation as a subsidy. And they talk about it in isolation as only the hydrocarbon industry's getting it. I am tired of the rants, I am tired of the labels, I am tired of the old world tactics. I need to help this country get on with coming back into the 21st century and improving the efficiency, the safety and the security of this industry. I'm very much in favour of this bill.